U.S. lawmakers have introduced a bill seeking sanctions against China. 9 influential senators have introduced legislation in Congress seeking to authorize President Trump to impose sanctions on China if the country fails to cooperate in providing full transparency of the events leading up to the outbreak of the coronavirus. Joining us now to discuss, Congressman Michael Waltz, a Republican from Florida. Congressman, thank you for being here. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks so much.
You got it. So how realistic is it that the U.S. will hear from China about what they knew about COVID-19 and when they knew it?
Well, I don't think we're going to hear from China the real facts of what's happened here. From the get-go, they have not allowed the CDC, the World Health Organization, or anyone else for that matter, to ground zero, to patient zero, and to really understand the origins of this virus. Had they done so, I think hundreds of thousands of people would still be alive today. And I think China needs to be held accountable.
And President Trump has long said the lack of information from China about the virus greatly impacted his administration and the U.S.'s response. Do you believe that this is true?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, we know now that the Chinese understood the nature of how contagious this virus was. They understood that it was going human to human, not just animal to human. All the way back in December, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and others in the region were sounding the alarm bells, which sadly the World Health Organization ignored. And had they allowed everyone to take appropriate measures back then, when we know now that weeks and months matter in terms of fighting this thing, and meanwhile, they were still allowing international flights, so people that were infected to flow all over the world, while they were constricting domestic flights. So it's clear that the Chinese Communist Party knew what was going on and yet took appropriate measures to protect themselves and not the rest of the world. That absolutely affected how we responded to this.
And this bill threatens to impose sanctions on China. So what could this legislation really mean for U.S.-China relations going forward?
Well, look, I think it's time that we have to put national security first here. I'm a member now of the China Task Force in the House of Representatives that's taking a holistic look from education to healthcare and, of course, to our military response, to space, and just across the board. I've introduced legislation to bring our pharmaceutical supply chain home, to stop the theft of our technology out of our universities, and to stop our pension plans, including our federal pension plan that the entire U.S. military contributes to, from investing into the Beijing Stock Exchange. The Chinese Communist Party has to pay for this. And I think these measures, in addition to these sanctions, are going to have a serious effect.
Interesting. Something we'll definitely keep an eye on. In the meantime, Congressman, stateside, House Democrats passed their historic spending bill late Friday night. Republicans have already said the bill will die in the Senate. President Trump saying he will veto it as well. So what's the point here of Speaker Pelosi's bill?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that she didn't engage with us. She didn't negotiate. She really wasn't interested in coming to a compromise with legislation that could actually be signed into law and that could go forward to help the American people. This was all about messaging for her base. If you remember, with the third stimulus package, she literally flew in the day before and dropped all of these progressive agenda items: Green New Deal, union bargaining rights, additional demands on corporations, sanctuary city funding, and on and on. She didn't get it into that third bill. So now that's what this one's all about, knowing it's not going to go into law and knowing that Republicans in the Senate and the president won't stand for it. So this is so that her most left-wing members can go back to their liberal constituencies and say, that they got this into the House bill. And that's all it is. Hopefully, going forward, we can all sit down and come together and craft something that's realistically going to help with the American people. I want to see protections for businesses from liability. We can't have them facing an avalanche of lawsuits, and we need to see a tax holiday. It doesn't make sense that we keep collecting trillions in taxes just to try to redistribute it out going forward. And I think there's other things that we can do to protect the most vulnerable while getting the rest of America back to work.
So that was, of course, one of the major votes that everyone was focusing on Friday. But there was another one that I want to talk about, another historic vote, the vote by proxy. The House obviously adopting that. This is in response to the coronavirus pandemic that's going on. We know so many people, so many Americans are working remotely too. And now it seems that the House might be able to do so as well.
Look, I don't think this was about safety. This was about power. And this is about Speaker Pelosi being able to continue to craft legislation behind closed doors with a few of her staffers and her lieutenants, while the House of Representatives, she alone determines, is out of session. The Senate is in session and getting to work. The entire executive branch is getting to work and doing so safely. Our state governments are doing so. Our local governments are doing so. The county commissions in my district in Florida are coming together to meet. But keeping with CDC guidelines, there's no reason the House of Representatives can't get back to work. Yet I'm staying in D.C. I'm going to continue working on the defense bill and our space bill and others behind the scenes as best I can. I think the American people expect the House of Representatives to be in session, be in Washington, do so safely, and pass legislation that helps them.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you being back at work, and we know frontline workers are as well. Our medical healthcare heroes are working in hospitals. That's not stopping them.
If they can do it, we can do it. I mean, absolutely. Right. We need to step up to this historic event. And yes, it entails some risk, but we can do so.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And we know Florida is beginning to reopening. Congressman, just tell us really quickly what's going on in your district.
Well, North Florida, the Panhandle, very different than, say, downtown Miami. So where it makes sense in doing so safely, we're getting back to business. We're getting back to work. There is I can't say it enough. There's an element of individual responsibility here. We don't need a nanny state in the government to tell us how to all be adults and to get back to our lives safely.